hands and be the voice, combine efforts to collectively come up with solutions that can help curb the many challenges that we as librarians and information professionals continue to face. And this in itself, this webinar is one of the first initiative that we have started off with. So our next up to present is Dragana from Croatia. She is a senior librarian there and has been a project manager and initiated so many successful projects that I cannot mention here now, but she'll be able to unpack everything in her presentation. A lot of times as librarians, probably we don't know how to come up with these projects, and I think maybe you can enlighten us more on just how best can we come up with impactful projects that are sustainable. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and hello to everyone. I'm so happy that there are many of you today, and I want to thank Melba, of course, for her friendship over the years and for her to invite me here. I am in a very good company. I think the previous presentations were really, really interesting and enlightening. I hope you can hear me well, and now I will share my presentation with you. Okay. Just a second, please. Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I will be talking to you today about storytelling in libraries. It's about designing impactful projects in libraries and ensuring their sustainability. I was talking to Melba before this webinar, and we concluded that this is a huge thing in project management in libraries, the sustainability of the project itself. But let's start from the beginning. I come from the National and University Library in Croatia. It is a very small country in Europe. We have just around 4 million people. These are some pictures of Croatia. We are a predominantly tourist country, so most of our GDP comes from tourism, and this is important for later in the presentation. So this is kind of an outline of what we're going to talk about today. First, a bit of introduction about me and where I work, the importance of storytelling, and then we will talk about designing projects that have an impact. Then we will talk about user experience and ensuring sustainability. And at the end of the presentation, I will show you some examples of the projects that I worked on. And then we will all together come to a conclusion. So just a little bit about me. As Melba said, I am a website and social media editor-in-chief and project manager in the library, and I have over 7 years of experience in managing different library projects. I am also the educator at the Croatian Center for Professional Development for Libraries, where I hold a design thinking course for librarians. I'm also the head of the digital laboratory program at the library, and also the head of the Commission for Information Technologies at the Croatian Library Association. So the National and University Library in Zagreb, where I work, is a central national library in Croatia and a central library of the University of Zagreb. It is more than 400 years old, and it has over 3.5 million items and over 7,000 patrons. So Croatia is a small country, but we have a very strong library system. We have over 200 national libraries, a little bit over 1,800 school libraries, as well as university libraries, faculty libraries, special libraries, digital libraries, etc. So this is the building of our library from the outside and the inside. And let's get to the topic. So we are talking about storytelling today, and I wanted to share first this inspirational quote from Rudyard Kipling, who said that if history were taught in the form of stories, it would never be forgotten. And we will find out why this quote is very true. So what is storytelling? Storytelling, as a definition, we can say is a universal human experience that shapes how we see the world. It is very universal because it spans not only time, but also place. It is ingrained in every culture in this world. Robert McKee, who is a famous scriptwriter, said that stories fulfill a profound human need to grasp the patterns of living, not merely as an intellectual exercise, but within a very personal emotional experience. Why is the story format so important? Well, the London School of Business found in an experiment that people retain 65 to 70% of information shared via a story versus only 5 to 10% of information conveyed through statistics. And this is a bit about the topic that you just discussed about how we measure ourselves. So are the numbers enough, and why do we have to go beyond the numbers? I think that these statistics show that in a very clear way. And in a separate study done by Stanford University, it was found that the brain recalls stories 22 times better than just simple facts and numbers. So biologically, as humans, we are wired to process and share information in a story format. So it has been scientifically been proven. So storytelling in libraries, if you Google this term, you will come up with different works that consider it for just a program for children. So a program in children's libraries where people come and read stories and tell stories to kids. And that's great, that's a great program. But storytelling is more than that. It is also a business practice, if we see it from that perspective. Because how we tell our story is how others will perceive us. So it is essential in creating a brand that will resonate with people on an emotional level. And this is very important, to resonate with people on an emotional level, not just an intellectual one. So if we tell them about our numbers, it will resonate on an intellectual level, but it will not resonate on an emotional level. And good storytelling is an essential leadership skill for creating a shared vision with your shareholders, peers, and patrons alike. And this is very, very important for advocacy. So to have advocates for your work and your library, you have to create a shared vision with them. And the best way to do that is to be a good storyteller. So the value of storytelling is multiple, but I've just had these 5 points so we can summarize. It is important to establish emotional rapport for your stakeholders, as I've previously said. It is also important to simplify idea, because sometimes we have an idea that is very simple and clear to us, but to the people who are listening to it, they have no idea what we are talking about. So story is a medium that will help people understand us better. It is also important in broadening the reach of our work. So not just for our community, but also for a wider community of people. It is very important in motivating people and also to persuading people to back you financially, morally, or in whatever way. The story is very important in persuading. So the questions we need to answer before we start any work is, first, what is my story? What is my personal story? The second question that we need to answer is, what is the story of my library? And the third, if we are talking about projects and project management, is what is the story of my project? So here are just some examples of the difference between the facts and the stories. So in my introduction, I said a lot of things about myself, as you can see on the left side, and I don't think it meant anything to any of you. It's just a sequence of titles that beyond that really mean nothing. They mean nothing. So this is the left side is not the story about me. The story about me is that I'm a librarian who is almost a lawyer. So I went to law school and I quit and I wanted to be a librarian. And I chose this. So I think that's a part of my story. I wanted to follow this path to be a librarian because I really believe in libraries and I wanted to love what I do. I'm also very passionate about storytelling with content on web and social media, as well as bringing about change in the library field through innovative projects with new technology and methodologies such as design thinking. I'm also a firm believer in sharing knowledge with my community. So as you can see, I said everything that is on the left side, but it is in the form of a story that resonates a little bit better. And here is an example of what is the story of my library. So on the left side, there are just the facts. You know, you can be impressed or not impressed wherever you come from, but it's not the story of the library. Our story is that we are not only the biggest library in Croatia with over 3.5 million items, but are also the oldest one with a tradition spanning over 4 centuries. And not only do we have 7,000 patrons, but over 100,000 people enter our doors every year to read, study, explore, and discover the world of knowledge. And we are proud to be the main keepers of our country's memory for generations to come. As you can see, this is creating advocacy because the last sentence said that we are main keepers of our country's memory.
Quên là
So,
dengan namu dia macam filem-filem dia saya rasa biasa tak tahu lah mungkin.
no one is talking. So yes, as I said, you cannot argue with this. You cannot argue with the value of the library when we say that we are the main keepers of our country's memory for generations to come. So everyone will say, okay, that's important. So how do we design projects that have an impact on our community? And I would say that purpose is key. And we will come back to this word purpose because it's very, very important in everything that we do, and especially in designing projects. So I would like to introduce you. Some of you maybe know about this methodology. It's called design thinking. And it seems like it's something for designers, but it's not. It's really for everyone. And it's a very simple methodology and a very simple concept that I think can help you in your everyday work as well as managing projects. So what it basically is a human-centered approach to creative problem solving. So every problem that you have in your library, you can apply this design thinking methodology, whether it's creating new services, new products, some internal problems with the organizations that you have. Design thinking methodology can be applied to all of it. It is a non-linear, iterative process that teams use to understand users, challenge assumptions, redefine problems, and create innovative solutions to prototype and test. What it can do is it can really help us build meaningful and sustainable projects. But the most important thing is that this methodology focuses on the solution to a problem instead of the problem itself. So how to be innovative, how to be creative? It's so easy when someone tells you, right? Just be innovative, be creative. But then you say, but how? You know, how do I do that? It seems so simple when someone else does it, and then we try to do it and we stumble upon a lot of roadblocks. Because innovation doesn't just happen spontaneously. Creativity doesn't happen spontaneously. It requires planning and a method. And also change doesn't come easy. You know, everything that we will be talking about today, if you ask any of the participants, was it easy? It was not. It takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of will to learn. So creating innovation basically requires planning and a method. And this is a quick overview of the design thinking methodology. This is these 5 steps that you see here and this methodology, this is in the course that I'm teaching librarians, and it lasts for 5 hours. So I will just be very brief and just to help you kind of see what it's all about. So the design thinking methodology has 5 basic steps. The first step, and the most important one, is to empathize. What does it mean? It means that in this step, we have to first deeply understand the people who will use our product or service. And this is sometimes looked over. You know, people come up with an idea for the project and the idea is really good, it sounds good, but then when you ask them the question, but who is it for, they just kind of don't know what to say. And it happens more than you think. So in this step, we try to understand the people who will use our product or service or project that we are trying to create. You can do this multiple ways. You can do this by interviewing people, by having saris, by observing people that come to a library, but by having one-on-one talk, by having focus groups. So we have to have this step first before we begin anything. We have to understand the people. The second step is definition. So in this step, after we gathered all the knowledge of our users, we have to define the core problem that we want to solve. The core problem for them that we want to solve with this project. And we have to write a problem statement. A problem statement is a simple 1-sentence statement that says, our users have a problem with this, this, and this. The third part is the most fun part. It is called ideation, where we challenge our assumptions and create ideas for the solutions of the problem. So we present the problem that we defined in the second step, and we have something that is called a brainstorming activity, but it's really intense. So each member of the team has to write a lot of ideas. And the interesting thing is that when people start to write the ideas, the solutions for the problem that we defined, first 5 ideas we throw away. We just throw them away in the trash can. And why is that? Because the first ideas that we have are very obvious, and it is considered that if it was that simple, the problem would already be solved. So we have to really, really work with our brains. And it's hard work, you know, to be creative. But after those 5, 6 first ideas, the best ideas start to come up. So from all that ideas that we gathered from the team, we choose 1, 2, maybe 3 ideas, and we start to prototype or start to create solutions. So this is something that design thinking methodology is really good at, the prototyping stage. So for example, you have an idea for a new service or a new product in your library. You don't just start working on it and implementing it. You start to prototype it. What does it mean? It means to create a so-called low-fi prototype or low fidelity. So if you, for example, want to make a new space in the library for kids, you don't go out and buy the furniture and do everything and it's done. No. You have to make something on a little lesser level. So for example, you will have a model. You will have a little model in one corner and you will test it with users. And only after you tested it in the 5th step, can you start to see, okay, we have made a mistake somewhere. The users are not responding to it in a way that we hope they would. So this little arrow here indicates that this methodology is iterative. So it means that we go back as much as we have to. So in the testing stage, if we saw, okay, the kids don't like to use this type of chairs, we go back to the first step, which is to empathize, because clearly we didn't understand our users enough, and that's why our prototype failed. And this approach is very economical because it saves you time and it saves you money. It brings you the opportunity to make mistakes where, they won't cost so much because it's just a prototype. So for example, if you're building a web page or a mobile application, you know what the first thing you have to do? Not go and make it, but draw it. Literally take a piece of paper and a pen and draw. Okay, this is my screen, first screen. I want my users to click here. And when he clicks here, another screen will open, literally with your hand. And you give that to your user and you ask for feedback. And he says, okay, this doesn't make sense to me. Okay, you go and change it and so on. And only after you have tested it with your real users, then you can go in the production phase. So this is just a quick overview. As I said, this takes around 5 hours. So if you find it a little bit confusing, I don't blame you. So everything that I'm talking about today and that the previous presenters talked about is essentially user experience should be in the focus of everything that we do. So user experience is a very well-known term that is used in business and especially in IT, and it essentially is about how the user experiences our product and service from point A to point B to the final point. And there is a good saying that says people ignore the design that ignores them, and that is very true. So before anything, we need to understand our users, their needs, wants, and problems. And only when we have that understanding of who are we doing it for and how will it help or enhance their lives, can we start designing our projects. It is also called human-centered design. So a person, a human, is in the center of everything that we create and do. So how do we ensure sustainability in a project? Well, the first thing we have to know is what sustainable projects have. So first, they have a clear goal. You probably heard of the SMART goal, that every goal that you set has to be SMART. That means it has to be specific, it has to be measurable, it has to be achievable, it has to be relevant, and it has to be time-bound. So what does that mean? Well, specific, it is clear, it has to be a very specific goal. I want to do this and this to get this and this result. It also has to be measurable, as we've heard other presenters talk about. How do we measure our impact? Well, there are many ways that you can measure your impact, but the first thing would be that you have to know what your end goal is, and then you can say, okay, we achieved that goal or we didn't achieve that goal. It has to be achievable, so it has to be realistic, I would say. You have to know how many finances you have to know how many human resources you have to know how much time you have. So it has to be really achievable. It has to be relevant. It has to be relevant to your users, to people who will use it. And it has to be time bound. It has to have some sort of time bound measurement. It has to be purpose driven. So when someone asks you, why are you doing this project? You have to have a very, very clear sentence. Okay, this is the purpose of my project. One of the most important things in sustainable projects is that good projects have good methodology and effective planning. So they are very, very much analytics oriented. You have to choose a methodology. There are a lot of methodologies. Design thinking is just one of them. There are a lot of methodologies. And you have to have some experience in effective planning. So also communication and collaboration, as well as defined roles in the team. So every team member has to know what their roles are and what our expectations as a project manager are from them. The important thing is also flexibility and resilience to change, because from my experience in managing projects, nothing goes as planned. Let me tell you, nothing ever goes as planned. There are always setbacks. There are always things that you didn't count on. There are always people that don't really believe in what you're doing. Sometimes you don't believe in what you're doing. So you have to count that in. So when you plan your projects, count that in. Count the roadblocks, count everything that will stop you from creating your vision. Count that in before it happens, so you're ready when it happens, and that makes you resilient to any kind of change in the process. So these are some case studies or examples of some projects that I've worked on, so that it's not only me speaking about theory, but just to show you what we did in Croatia. So the first project I want to tell you about is the Greetings from Zagreb project, for which we won the World Marketing Bronze by the IFLA Group of Marketing and Management. And I had the opportunity and the honor to present this project in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, at the IFLA conference. This project was about creating value outside of the library. So what that means is we made a mobile application. This was the first mobile application in any Croatian library. As I said in the beginning of my presentation, Croatia is a tourist country. So tourism is a sector that we invest in a lot and that we expect from a lot. And we wondered in our library, okay, we are very closed off in our community. We do projects that, you know, our users and patrons who come to the library use, and we go on conferences with other librarians, and it started to seem like a very closed world of library professionals. So we wanted to step outside of the library. We wanted to step outside and see and show people that libraries can bring value to other sectors, not just education, not just culture, but also other business sectors. And we wanted to create value for the tourist sector. We wanted to have an impact as a national library, to be able to say, okay, we have also something of value that will help our tourist sector. And we started to wonder, but what was that? How can we do that? So we have a very old collection of old postcards, like tourist postcards from our country from the 19th century. And we started to think, well, that's interesting. You know, that's a tourist product. You know, you go somewhere, you buy a postcard and you write something and you send it to your family and friends. So we had this idea to digitize those postcards and to put them in a mobile application and to offer them to tourists who come to our city, to our country. The problem was that we didn't have the money, of course. So we contacted the tourist community, the tourist board, the tourist city boards from Zagreb, and pitched them the idea. We told them the story. We created a story. And they said, well, this story is really good. We are going to give you finances to do this. And it was not a lot of money. So we had to search for a company that will do that for 1/3 of the price for this kind of project on the market. So we created this application, and it's basically, we have marketed it like time travel with old postcards of Zagreb. So you go in the application and you can choose from 10 different locations in our capital, and you can send old postcards from the 19th century to your family and friends, but with WhatsApp, Viber, email, you can share it on social media, and etc. So this was a big success for us. Finally, the news outlets that never covered any work from our library started to cover this project. Thankfully, we got the librarian award from IFLA as well, which also helped. But I think the greatest thing that came from this project was that the library showed that we can bring value outside of the library. We can bring value to other sectors as well. So the second project that I will be talking to you about is called the DigiLab Podcast Project. Last year, we won the Yovi Science Education and Research Innovation Award. In this project, we recognized an opportunity for networking and learning. So we created a podcast in our library, but it's not just a podcast about our library. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to create a studio, and we wanted to create an incubator, sort of startup for different podcasts in the culture and education sector in Croatia. So we wanted to help them create their own podcasts. And in the 2 years, we created many podcasts with them, as you can see. It's different topics about education, about philosophy, about librarianship, about culture, about movies, music, and etc. And it was really, really good because we connected with other communities as well, not just the librarianship community, but other creative sector communities as well. And one of the biggest values that we got from this project is that we learned a lot. We learned a lot about video production. We learned a lot about marketing. We learned a lot about video editing and all that things that we use in our future projects as well. So the third project that I want to show you is the Smart Library project, for which we won silver medal for innovation at the International Innovation Fair ARCA in 2018. And this is a project that was basically responding to a specific need. So our library is huge, it's very big. And people that come there, patrons, they get lost very easily. They don't know on which floor they are. They don't know where the bathroom is. So it's very large open spaces and you can get lost very easily. So we had the idea 5 years ago to create a mobile application called the Smart Library application, which will be kind of an indoor navigation in the library, because people come in our library and they don't even know everything that we have. They don't know our collections, they don't know our services. They come there and they borrow the book and they go home. So we wanted to change that. So we wanted to make this mobile application that has all of the locations in the library with all of the services of the library in the palm of user's hand. And our patrons are mostly younger people, students who use their mobile phones every day. So this was the only logical thing that we can make. And the thing is that this costs a lot of money to make this kind of application. And we knew that we didn't have that kind of money. We applied on different fundings. We searched for different people who will do that. So we knew that we cannot make it in 1 year, for example. So we made a 6-year plan. So we divided this project for 6 years because we knew that is the only way financially that we can do it. And now we are in our 5th year, and next year we are going to finish it. We were lucky to find people that were willing to work with us basically for this kind of money. And this application will be free for any library in Croatia. They can just take it over and put their own content in it, so they don't have to pay it as we did. So it will be an open source application for every library in Croatia. So to conclude this story is what we need to do to bring innovation to our work. I think first we need to know the stories about ourselves so we can create purpose-driven work. Also, we need to tell the stories to our stakeholders to create advocates for our work. We also need to adopt new methodologies in our work in order to bring innovation. We definitely need a new way of thinking that is solution-based, not problem-based. And we need to look at challenges as opportunities, not as obstacles. And in the end, we need to learn and grow from each other's successes as well as mistakes. And I think this is important to say and to admit that we all make mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes, but I learned from them. My team made a lot of mistakes, but they learned from them. And it's often in this kind of webinars and conferences you go and you just hear about the success stories, and it seems impossible, but no one talks about the mistakes, no one talks about the setbacks. But we should not look at mistakes as something negative. It's very positive. You know, you wouldn't make that mistake if you didn't work, if you didn't try. So I think that this conference and this webinar is a great opportunity to learn and grow from each other. And thank you again for including me. It was an honor. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you so much. We are clapping here for you. Thank you very much. Colleagues, can we just give a round of applause? Thank you very much. Any questions from our participants online? Any questions to our presenter? Thank you very much for that very informative presentation, Dragana, especially where you spoke about empathy. Because sometimes we look at ourselves only, we look at the picture of only ourselves and not the user's picture. So I think the element or aspect of empathy that you brought in really touched me. Like, I'm not always right, but I should take time to listen to the user and see the picture in their own space and understand them fully. Yeah, very, very important. But since you say this session is for, it lasts 5 hours, so I think we'll have you again for the whole full day to coach us and mentor us. We have Ms. Namtenya's hand up. She wants to contribute. Now, you can go ahead.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much for a very good presentation. I just want to find out, because managing projects and also running the library daily activities is kind of a challenge. So do you have a team that's specifically managing projects, or how do you successfully do all that?
Thank you for the question. Well, it's a challenge, but I think it's also about priorities, and it's also about methodology. So I have my days and my weeks planned. And I always take in considerations that things will happen, things will pop up that will take away my time. So I take that in consideration. So it's really about planning, and it's really about priorities. So not everything can be a priority. You cannot have every email that you have to respond in 5 minutes. Not everything is as important. So what I do is I set 3 to 5 goals a week. I think that's manageable for me, and then start slowly. As for teams on the projects, yes, every project has a different team. So we bring people from inside the library and outside the library. We define their roles. But it can be a challenge sometimes. Definitely, you can get lost in all of that. And I think also the perception of a librarian is important, because I have heard, and it's funny, but you know, it's real, that people have told me that I'm not a real librarian because I have never cataloged a book in my life. I have never worked directly with patrons in my life. And I say, but I am a real librarian. You know, it's just a little bit different now. We have these different roles, and we have to change the perspective on that. So I think that, you know, everything that you do, you have to know who you are and what is your purpose and what is your goal. And then it helps to manage everything. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes. Try to plan your week as best as you can, and say no to people. It's okay to say no to people and not respond to everything all the time in the moment. That's important. Yeah.
Go Godwill from Malawi, very impressive. Wow, impressive. Any contributions before we move back to Farah? Any contributions, colleagues? Here? There's any contribution? How do we bring value outside our libraries? Martin, managing projects and running a library is such a challenge. What should we do? Priority and methodology are very important in executing these tasks. Defining the tasks, the task roles. Okay, it's just a contribution. Thank you, Martin, from Namibia. Any other contribution? Yes, slides will be shared. Thank you so much. We will share the slides. We will share the presentation. All presentations will be shared. Thank you. To the chairperson for new one. Any contributions? I also love the aspect that you brought in to say that we are good at talking about how successful a project was, but we don't really talk about the challenges, the hardships that were encountered. So we need to take into consideration of the roadblocks that we anticipate to face. Very, very important, because sometimes when we hear stories such as yours, where you do so much with less, we tend to think it's so easy, but not knowing just what you go through to make it successful. So thank you very much for bringing that aspect. We hope to see again, to see you for another full day session so that you run us through step by step. Is it fine? Thank you. Any contributions, colleagues? If there are no contributions, we move to the next presentation. Farah, are you ready?
Yes, Meba. Ready?
Thank you so much. The floor is
Alright.
yours.
All
Yes.
right, thank you.